which is better, a 6 aperture blade diaphragm or a 7 aperture blade diaphragm? And which one produces the best starburst? Well, that's exactly what I'm going to try to find out in this video. I'm lucky enough to have these two Canon kit lenses, and the STM version, which is a newer one, has 7 aperture blades, and the USM II, which is the older lens, has 6 aperture blades, and they offer us a really good opportunity to test out these lenses, test the starburst and see which one we prefer. I'm going to attempt to take the same photo with each of these lenses if I can, and I'm going to use the Canon 100D, which I've still got hold of this. Should be giving it back to its owner, but you hold on to these things. And I really like this camera, so it's kind of one that I want to use a bit more. And I'm going to mount both these lenses on the Canon 100D, going to take the same shot, and we can see together if the 6 aperture blade is any different to 7 or how different they are. And what I'll do, once I've taken the picture, we'll go back home, have a look on my computer, and we can look at them together and see which one we prefer. There's no shortage of decent images I can use to take a starburst shot, and especially that tonight the Christmas lights have been switched on, gives me lots of opportunities. It's interesting that a lens with a diaphragm with 6 aperture blades will give you 6 fronds of light or 6 lines of light, whereas the 7-bladed aperture diaphragm will give you 14, and that's a really interesting bit of physics. And that's because where there's 6 blades in the diaphragm, because they're aligned, each of the lines cancel each other's out, and you just get the 6. So you get one line for each of the sort of blades, whereas where it's 7, they don't cancel each other out, and you get a line of light going from one side of the aperture all the way through. Maybe I'll put that up as a diagram so you can see exactly what I mean. And that's a nice little physical thing that sort of separates the two lenses. Yeah, there is a question when it comes to taking photos and using starbursts. Do you want just a few starbursts, 1 or 2 in your image, or do you like lots? Personally, I prefer to keep it as minimal as possible. You don't need the effect of a starburst all over your image. You don't need lots and lots of lights. And I prefer 1, so you can put 1 or 2 or 3 at the most, and it just adds that little extra interest to your image, but it doesn't overpower your image. That's what I like. I'm back home now in double quick time, and I did take some video of me taking some pictures to try to find some lights that are going to give us starbursts. Unfortunately, what I didn't do was plug the mic cable in, so I didn't quite get all the video I wanted. And what I was trying to do is take a picture of the cathedral and the Magna Carta pub and get some nice lights, nice starburst lights at the top of the Magna Carta pub. And I also switched round and did another shot of one of the lights of Magna Carta pub, and got some nice pictures really. And it also went down the hill slightly, down steep hill, and I saw a bright light above a shop. So I thought I'd use that as an example as well. I'll have a look on the computer now. We can see which one was better. Is the 6 better than the 7, or the 7 better than the 6, or was there no difference? And I think it's quite interesting anyway. So let's have a look at these pictures. Here's the first image I took, and this was the one of the cathedral and the Magna Carta pub. And the idea was to try to get the starbursts at the top of here, which I've seen before in the past. And well, we can see them on this light. Can't we? Maybe have a look at these ones. I didn't see these earlier. So this was on the left-hand side. This is the 7-bladed lens. This is the STM, and this is the USM. I'll just zoom into these because I hadn't spotted these before. So that gives us a nice little view of these actually. And immediately I can see, yeah, they're both produced a nice starburst. Lots of nice starbursts here, isn't there? My own personal preference, as I said earlier, I prefer the 6-bladed aperture diaphragm, because it's a nice cleaner starburst. But you might prefer the 7, and you get all these lots of different fronds of light that's coming from this light. I think it's messy, if I'm honest. I think there's far too many lines that are coming out of this starburst, but this looks nice and clean and nice and crisp. And my view is I prefer this. I'm not sure if these images are terribly sharp. This was ISO 400, as you can see up here, and I think it looks really grainy. I'm quite surprised at how grainy this is. feels like it's more grainy than my Olympus, considering that it's a slightly larger sensor. That's quite a surprise to me. But yeah, at least at f22, you would expect to see a nice starburst, and maybe the f22, that's why it looks really soft and slightly out of focus. Look, that is definitely. It might be because the aperture is so low, it's going to give you an out of focus. Now, let's have a look at the next one, see what the difference is for that one. This is the second image I took, and I aimed up at these lights at the top. Let's zoom into these lights. Oh, that's too much. Won't zoom into these lights then because it's too much. And I quite like this picture. It's got a nice picture of the pub sign and the tip of the castle moat, and it looks quite good. But once again, as you can see, I think these are not terribly clean, but I think these starbursts are on the right of the older lens, the 6-bladed aperture. I think these are quite a little bit cleaner, but these actually look quite nice on this image. They're quite good. Notice my big Fortuner got a bit of rain on the lens, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, I quite like these ones in truth in this image, but I still like these as well. So in my view, I'm going to say I prefer the 6-bladed starburst rather than the 7. But in this instance, that's not a bad thing. Let's have a look at this one, and these are pretty much the same image, the pretty much same focal range, and I've done the same edits. I've done that for all of them. And once again, personally, I think the starburst on this image is lots cleaner than the starburst on the 7-bladed aperture. Oh, I don't want to zoom in, to be honest, because it will just wipe your eyes out. But yeah, once again, I prefer that. I think that it looks cleaner, it looks nicer. And yeah, you don't need many of these starbursts in your image. I hope you agree with me. I hope that's an interesting summary. But in all 3 shots, they all produced reasonably okay starburst, despite the difference in the starburst. And as I've said all along, right from the start, my preference would have been on the 6-bladed aperture diaphragm, mainly because I think it gives a nicer starburst. But if you've got a 7-bladed aperture lens and you don't have access to a 6, as I've demonstrated here, in the right time, in the right circumstances, you really could get a nice starburst with your lens too. You don't have to have a 6 aperture blade starburst, but I personally prefer, and these images just yeah, I think this describes it well, really. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope it's been interesting comparing a 6-bladed aperture diaphragm with a 7-bladed aperture diaphragm. It's quite interesting. I've not done this before, and it really is interesting to see the different starbursts that you get from these different lens configurations. Yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoy my content. Obviously, I'm trying to make content about photography and a little bit of Instagram. And if you do enjoy my content, why not subscribe to the channel? That would be amazing if you did. Once again, thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one. Cheerio.